Hi, everybody, and welcome to SA Rugby Magazine. I'm Kevin Ferguson, or AKA the Money Man. I've got Gavin Rich, and we got Rich Pickings with Gavin Rich. How you, bud?
I'm good, thanks, Kev. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm very well. Where are you now?
I'm in northern Zululand. I'm in a place between Makuzi and Pongola, above the Jazini Dam, on my way up to Kruger Park. Actually, at the week, I've got to be there by Friday. So, yeah. So I'm in transit at the moment. I was in Durban for the game this weekend, and what a great weekend that was for South Africa. Well, for the South African fans.
Well, you know, when you snuck out of the office last week, one of the guys came up to me and said, "That's Gavin Rich. I'm a big fan of his. Not a fan of mine, big fan of yours." And he said he told me they were going to Boks were going to win by 30.
Did I tell him that?
You did tell him that, bud. Well, so I mean, we were chatting off air a little while ago, and you're going to introduce this in the show a little bit, but I get the feeling that everybody's like a bit contrite and saying, don't get too ahead of yourselves. Well, it's like I've seen it in the comments. After the first 3 games of the year where we'd lost to New Zealand and won to Australia, it was again a lot of browbeating, forgetting the fact that we're double World Cup champions, that we're the champions of the championship. And I said, look, it's what I'm seeing is this South Africa are the best team in this tournament. And my God, I mean, you talk about Angus Gardner as a referee. He blew everything. He almost had an orgasm when he gave the collapsed try against South Africa. He blew and tried to blow us out of the game. I think he gave up in the second half when he realized that we were just too good.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I've been saying this quite.
Right? Am I reading that right?
You are. I mean, somebody said to me after the game, imagine what's going to happen when the Springboks produce an 80-minute performance when they're not up against those vagaries. I mean, there's been times when they've had a little bit of bad luck in the last. I mean, they should have actually won in Eden Park, to be honest, or they should have at least drawn that game. But if you look back at the season, I mean, I think we said in one of our very first podcasts, I haven't forgotten. Even when South Africa had lost to New Zealand and they weren't particularly good against Australia in that second test, I hadn't forgotten just how good the Springboks were in that first 20 minutes at Ellis Park. And I just always felt that was where we set the standard. I'm not saying that the other teams are always going to lose by 30 points or lose by 20 points, but I do think that we're going to go into a period now where the Springboks are going to win a lot more than they ever lose, and they're already doing that, but they're going to do it by a margin. They're going to take the vagaries out of the game. That's the most important thing of the game they're playing now, is that the refereeing mistakes don't matter anymore. Because in the old days, we used to go up in increments of 3. We'd go up penalties, and we'd win by 9 points. If we had a really good game, we'd win by 9 points against England or somebody. Now there's just, you're scoring those tries. The referee doesn't matter as much anymore. I mean, I do agree with you about Angus Gardner. He's not my favorite referee, and I think that he made some mistakes in that first half, and there were some debatable calls that were made. But in the end, it didn't matter because the Springboks just got their game together.
And you know what no one's talking about, Gavin? I think it's worth mentioning this, is that when you look at the team evolution and the inclusion and the amount of players lost, I said at one stage in my podcast that Rassie was a genius. And there's no other word that can be applied to him other than genius status. Yeah. You look at Mal Herber not playing. You look at Kitsoff not playing. Two world-class props out of the mix. And we haven't missed a beat.
Well, we've grown our game in this time. That's actually one of the keys. And to me, one of the biggest points of difference between the Springboks of now and the Springboks of the past, and I'm saying even the recent past, is that our forwards, the Springbok forwards now, have the skill set of. In fact, they might even surpass the skill set of the New Zealanders. They now get those little soft touches. I mean, at one stage, it was Arceus came on.
But I'll tell you what, I mean, I thought that they were a late 70s or early 80s French team, the way that they were passing the ball behind the back. It was just, the only word for it is champagne rugby. Despite the first half, champagne.
I mean, it's also momentum. It's also momentum rugby. Momentum rugby. When you got the momentum, you can do that. But it's just the way, they hold on to the ball. They don't drop the passes. Okay, so earlier in the season, they were making him. I mean, the first half of that game in Auckland, at Eden Park, they made mistakes there. The Boks should have been ahead in that game if they hadn't made silly mistakes. We know that they overplayed in Johannesburg. That after they were 22-0 up, they lost their heads a bit. But I look back and I sort of think to myself, well, there was a time when earlier in the season where the Springboks against Italy in Pretoria and again against Australia, we were completely outscored in the second half. I think it was like something like 26-14 or something to Italy in the second half at Loftus, and obviously it was 30-odd points to nil for Australia in Johannesburg. But in the last couple of games, it's actually been completely reversed. There were 42 second half points in this last game, and there were 33 points, 36 points, I think, in Wellington. So that comes to a total of 78 points in the Springboks have scored in the second half. So then I sort of like forward the.
I'm sorry, Gav. Sorry, mate. 110 points scored in the last 2 games.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So, but what I'm going to suggest now is that one of the things, and apart from the Springbok skills level, I'm talking about their handling skills. The big men have now got handling skills, and it's not just Argus Neyman. It's also possible that they're now starting to get conditioned to play this rugby. So when they were in Johannesburg, okay, there was the altitude, but the tempo is different. I mean, Tony Brown did say to me in an interview earlier this season, he did 2 things, in fact. He said, number one, he said, it's a misconception if you think that as an attack coach, I'm working mainly with the backs. He says, I actually work more with the forwards. And secondly, you need to be conditioned to play this game. And maybe the Boks weren't quite as conditioned to play the game back in, I think it was 6 weeks ago that they played it in Johannesburg. But now we're 6 weeks deeper into the season. Now suddenly they've got that match fitness, and they're properly conditioned. So perhaps there's something in that as well. But I just don't think. And I mean, I have said it before. I mean, I think we were almost conservative. It turned out we were conservative last week because I think we'll win by 16 or more, 15 or more, which we did. But I could easily, as I said to your colleague in the office there, I thought we could easily have won by 30, and we did. And so maybe it's time to stop taking off the kid gloves and to actually say this Springbok team is damn good. They've gone on a growth spirit that is going to make them very, very formidable opposition for everybody going forward. As far as I'm concerned, the only challengers are France. I mean, you could almost you probably sensed that I was going to say that. France have incredible depth too. But at the moment, the Springboks are flying, and it's hard for me to see anybody beating them in the foreseeable future. Obviously, we've got France and Ireland on the end of your tour, and if I was Russia, I wouldn't necessarily go completely full strength. I think he needs to rest players. But certainly, if we were playing a World Cup final tomorrow, I would say it's South Africa's to lose.
Well, I think that's where I was going this year, and I said, 2 years out from a World Cup, and what Rassi's doing is he's playing the long game. He's not playing a short game. He is focused on the World Cup, on getting 3 World Cups, because even though he's not credited with winning the second one, we credit him. And that's his mindset. I mean, if you look at the game, Gav, let's chat about some of the game. You look at Monty Leboc's try. I mean, that was magic. You look at Peter Steph du Toit. If it wasn't for Sacha Feinberg, you'd have Peter Steph winning man of the match. I mean, he put in a man of the match performance in that game. Absolutely. 2 tries, lots of meters gained through the first phase, just absolutely impeccable. And then, of course, Sacha Feinberg, who probably put on one of the best performances I've seen in the modern era. I mean, 3 tries, 37 points, and a kicking assist. I mean, he was just magnificent. I mean, anybody that talks shit about him now, and there's people out there, you can't help it on social media. There's just fucking retards everywhere. They will talk shit about him when he has a bad game. But 2 weeks ago, they were talking about sending him back to club rugby. It's like, what were you guys thinking? I mean, it's like, let the guy develop.
Yeah.
And the tries he scored were magnificent. They weren't like, an overlap under the posts and ridiculous. They were that one where he swung the ball wide and sucked in 2 defenders and then went under the posts. You know, the one where he did the 50-22 kick and chase. You know, to pick that ball up at speed. I'd love to see a lot of people try and do that in their spare time and just see exactly the level that this man is playing at. It's frightening.
Yeah. Well, those of us who have watched him a lot, won't be that surprised, that know his talents and people who have followed his career. But obviously, particularly an overseas audience, he's quite new. But I just remember, it's very rare for a fly half to score a hat trick of tries, particularly a hat trick, as you say, of tries which included a lot of individualism. Because he did. I mean,
Yes.
there was a lot of individualism in those tries. And you can cast your mind back a couple of months to a Stormers game against Connacht, where he scored a hat trick of tries. And also, most of those were individualistic efforts. And then I don't know if you remember that game, but he should have actually scored a fourth. He should have scored a
Mm,
fourth, but very unselfishly, like, did a little bit of a backflip pass to his former schoolmate, Suleiman Hartzenberg, who went over to score. So there should have been
yeah.
4 tries in that game. I mean, he is
Yeah.
just a stupendous talent. I remember bumping into Christian Stewart after that Connacht game.
Mm.
Christian, of course, played for the Springboks and Canada, and he's also a very creative player himself in his day. And those he's got.
I played against him when I was in Canada, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So
I'm
Christian, yeah,
well
very very
aware of
clever.
his talent.
Yeah, and he just said to me, he just stood there after the game, and he was just shaking his head, and he said, I can't believe this guy." And I said to him then, I said, "Listen, I didn't see Barry John play. I did see Phil Bennett play, and I saw Hugo Porter, who I think was probably one of the best fly half I saw in my. I've been watching rugby for 50 years now, I suppose, if I add it up. So Hugo Porter was a genius too. And let's not get carried away. I mean, Marnie's only played a couple of tests. I mean, Marnie, sorry, Sasa.
Yeah,
Sasa
yeah,
Sasha's only played well. Marnie's very good as well, by the way. But Sasha's
yeah.
only played a couple of tests. Has only played a couple of tests, and it's hard to sort of talk about him in legendary status yet. But he's got the potential. He's got the potential to be the best fly half that I've seen in 50 years. The other one probably being Nas Botha, actually. Nas Botha was a genius. I know everybody says he just kicked all the time, but he was a wonderful talent, that guy, and he played in an era where you weren't expected to tackle and be physical like the modern guys are. So Nas Botha was brilliant, and Dan Carter, and of course Dan Carter. You can't
We're
leave out.
getting we're getting now Dan Carter comparisons to Sacha, and rightfully
Yes,
so.
and
Rightfully so.
rightfully so.
Yeah,
Yeah. I saw
I think
Stuart Barnes wrote a piece in the Sunday in the English version of the Times, and I thought it was an excellent piece. And he said this guy's good enough to be Dan Carter or even surpass him. And I think he could even, there's a wizardry about Sacha that I haven't seen before, and I'm not even sure I've seen it from Dan Carter. He's
yeah.
just something about him. He's got a flag. Okay, so you know what Christian Stewart said to me in another conversation. He said that he wishes that Sacha played an individual sport. He says that
Mm,
because that guy's got that natural talent. He said if he played in Wimbledon, he'd make the final. I mean, I don't know whether that's true or not, but you know what I'm talking about when you say there's certain sportsmen who just have a certain genius about them and a certain wizardry, and Sacha's one of those. Whether he uses that talent, whether he clicks on now is only time will tell. The one big thing is you've always got to be careful of injuries. I mean, Bob Skinstad was a generational talent in my view, and then he had that silly car accident that robbed him of his explosiveness, because he
yeah.
had an injury. Something like that can always, let's hope it doesn't. I've seen many players who were really good, and then they have an injury, and then suddenly they're not haven't got quite that same sharpness anymore. So he's got skills that we need. He needs to stay fit. But otherwise, if he does stay fit, then I think Chess is going to be one of the best, if not the best, fly half the world's ever seen.
Let me ask you this question, and just tell me what you think. I'm throwing it out there. Is he the next Springbok captain?
I've heard talk like that. You see, the one thing that I would be hesitant about making him captain is that I think that Rusty system of having 3 fly halves works. Let's not forget that at the last World Cup, Andre Pollard was injured on the eve of the tournament and didn't
Yeah.
go initially. So we could have that situation again where where Sacha's injured. I mean, we all talk about him. He's going to be the next star of the next World Cup, but he's got to get there first. So you never know. Somebody can be injured like 2 weeks before the tournament and not go. So it's important for Rassie to still keep pushing those fly halves. So making a guy a permanent captain when there should be days that Mani plays, and there should be maybe days. Although people could call on Andre the wet weather option. They say if it's a wet weather game, then we use Andre. I would actually disagree with that and say that Sacha's got the kicking skills to be a good wet weather player as well. I don't think Mani maybe there's a question mark, but not Sacha.
Well, what did Sacha miss? From a kicking point of view, he's accurate.
He hit the post once. Yeah.
Still accurate. So when you look at it, his kicking around the field tactically was immense. I mean, he just put in. If he didn't get 10 out of 10 on those reviews that the people do, I mean, it was sacrilege. I mean, he was just absolutely champagne.
And then there was that run. I remember when he dropped back and he took a kick and almost dropping back to like a fullback position and he ran back and he ran through half the Pumas team, and unfortunately he should have passed. So that was the one wrong decision he made, and that would have been almost certainly a throw to the box. But that was just sublime. I mean, in another game where it's tight and you lose by 6 points, people might come down on Sacha and say, well, he shouldn't have done that. He should have passed, or he should, and that's the problem. Is there's a lot of people who worry about his individualism, but I think his individualism is what makes him great. I mean, that's what makes him confident. And he infused the Springboks with so much confidence once he decided. It was almost like he decided, stuff this. I've just watched Cheslin give them a try. I've just seen us concede a penalty try. I'm going to have to just take this game myself. I'm going to just have to grab this game because he was the guy who went to the referee apparently after that penalty try, said there's still 4 seconds left. There's still 4 seconds left. So he was obviously in his mind like, we need to go and score a try now. And that's exactly what he did. That's the measure of how good he is. I mean, it was like almost like he just said, I'm taking this game in my own hands now. I can't leave it to my teammates. But then once he started playing confidently, the rest of the team followed. It was almost like they got that same cockiness.
No, what you're saying, Gav, is absolutely right. Because to have the mindset that we still got 4 seconds, we can get the ball back and score, is outrageous.
Yes,
it's an outrageous level of confidence that you have in your own ability, and by your own ability means the team's ability. Because I played the game at a decent level years ago, and there's nothing worse than seeing backs get momentum and go through the phases and get tackled 20 yards downfield, and you're still going back to try and regroup. Get behind the ball. It's soul destroying. His performance was soul destroying for the Argentinian forwards.
Well, that's where when you to go back to your question about the captaincy, that confidence and that ability to sort of feel you can make something out of nothing, or you can get what you want on the field if you focus in and drive for it. That alone will make him as a good captain, because he will then infuse his teammates with that same feeling. Like, that he mustn't think that everybody's a genius like he is, but because maybe they're not. I think he'd make a good captain.
Yeah. I'm amazed at Ake Snyman, because whenever I see that guy, he's about 6'9", whenever I'm amazed that people haven't taken him on for some sort of Viking commercial, because he looks like the ultimate Valhalla Viking, doesn't he?
He does.
No, he's the epitome of Viking blood.
Well, we used to talk about Dwayne Vermeulen as being one of those, but Dwayne didn't have the hairstyle, so I think it's the hairstyle. The hairstyle that helps him look like that. But I mean, he's such a sublimely skilled player. I mean, okay, so he's maybe the outlier here, in the sense of he was a South African tight forward who had good skill set, and just perhaps that was also because he was coached by a Kiwi early in his career. You remember John Mitchell coached the Bulls for a while, and that's where both he and Lut Diago were playing for the Bulls, and that was when they started to suddenly do things that we've never seen them do before. So maybe it's not a coincidence that suddenly the Boks have a Kiwi on their management team, and suddenly the forwards just look different. Suddenly they're more mobile. They've got more skills, because I've always been told that that's what they do in New Zealand. They do focus a lot more on the skills of the forwards than they do here. So now the pennies dropped. Now I asked Tony Brown in an interview I did with him a couple of weeks ago. I said, "What's going to happen one day when you're the All Black coach or you're the All Black assistant coach, and you're going to realize you're coming up against a South African who have suddenly realized they can play a certain way because of you?"
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's palpable the change in the Springboks forwards in terms of how they're approaching the game. It really is palpable, and people don't give enough credit to what Tony Brown has done there. I mean, hopefully he's put the last two performances has put all the ghosts to bed, and people can shut
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
about Tony Brown and why are we playing this way, and we got to stick to this. And it's like we don't have to stick to anything. We keep evolving as a team, and we're 33 points better off than New Zealand. I mean, that's a crushing defeat.
Yeah.
30 points better
in New Zealand as well. Yeah.
30 points crushing defeat against Argentina with 16 players in the first half. Is there anything the Boks can't do? And sorry, I'm not going to temper my attitude towards the Boks and I should keep it low and stuff. I mean, they're playing in Twickenham, and that will be a home game for us.
Yeah. So I got a WhatsApp from somebody saying you guys are being too sort of positive. Don't forget that just 4 games ago they lost to Australia at Ellis Park. And my answer to that is that we know why they lost. That there will always going to be. I've always said that there will be growing pains. So we could still have a hit down the road. The Springboks are playing a lot of high risk, high reward. So that risk means that there are going to be days where something's not going to come off. You have a Cheslin brain fart or something, and we won't come back from that. But I think generally just that growth is happening, and that growth was always going to take time. So yes, it was 6 weeks ago that we lost to Australia, but don't forget that Australia had just played a Lion series before that, so they were more hardened than the Boks. The Boks had only played Italy and Georgia. Who else? Barbarians. So it wasn't. It's not comparing apples with apples. The Boks were playing their first tough opponents of the season. They overplayed. They were seduced by the fact that they were up 22-0 and they thought they could run everything. Now they're starting to get that balance to their game. And wow, what a balance! The Boks are driving and they're kicking and they're doing the passing game. They're going wide to wide when they need to. They're actually playing what I suppose we could call total rugby. Everybody always talks about total rugby, but we haven't had total rugby in the past. The Boks have occasionally come out, like at the World Cup final in 2019. I think they surprised England once they got momentum with how well, particularly Lukanya Am made ground, like as a running back. So there have been outliers, and the Boks arguably started to change their game actually in 2022 when they started to run the ball back at France in Marseille in that game that they lost narrowly when they were down to 14 men after Pieter-Steph du Toit was red carded. They started to change their game now. I mean then, but now they're getting to the point where they're just so adaptable, and they've got those guys. Okay. So up until a certain point, we would always look at who's the most valuable Bok player, and we would always say, and who's the one that the opposition should most fear. And if you look at our recent World Rugby winners of the year, it's been Pieter-Steph du Toit, and it should have been Ebenezer. And then going back a few years, it would be Skalkberger. And I think Brian actually Habana was the one outlier. I think he was a World Rugby winner one year. But generally, it's been the forwards that have been the big sort of names in South African rugby. Now we've got a Sacha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, and you know what you said? You said Pieter-Steph du Toit would have been the man of the match if it wasn't for Sacha. You know who else might have been a man of the match? Was actually Kainan Moodie. I mean, Kainan Moodie is actually also a special player. He's also, to me, a generational player, and we know what Damian Willemse can do as well. I mean, we saw it in Wellington. So we've got like generational talents at the back, and that is where we're in quite a unique situation. I would almost say totally unique, but I do remember the 1980s where South Africa didn't play international rugby, but where they had a plethora of very special backs, and Carl du Plessis, Dani Gerber, Michael du Plessis, Ray Mort. There would have been Nos. I mustn't forget about Nos. So that would have been a time if South Africa had played international rugby where I think the backs would have been to the fore. But this is actually the next time on from that, where I think that South Africa, not only do they have brilliant forwards, but they've also probably got the best. They arguably could become the best back division in the world too. And they're interchangeable. You've got Damian Delende, you've got Damian Delende and Damian Willem, so he can play 12, and Andre Esterhuizen is now become a really good international rugby player. Then it's no longer just the case of, oh, he was very good for Harlequins, but he's never done anything for anybody else. He's been very good for the Boks as well.
Yeah. I mean, life's tough enough. You'll agree with that statement. And life can be pretty tough.
Yeah.
When you're basking in the sunshine of what I would say is probably the best Boks team we've ever seen, bask, enjoy it. You know, celebrate the moments.
Stop. I mean, temperate.
Yeah, stop being so contrite and saying, remember 5 years ago we did this, we did it. 5 years is gone. This is a team that is so much advanced compared to any team I've seen in the world, with the exception of the French at home. I would say that's going to be a tough game for us. But we've got to enjoy, because 4 points wins us the championship, unless New Zealand absolutely put an 80-0 points total against Australia, and that's not going to happen in Perth.
No,
it's
not going to happen.
So
it's not going to happen anyway now.
So even if they get a bonus point try and score more than us, they've got to beat them by 60 points or something like that. It's close to that. So we need 4 points to win the championship on Saturday. How do you see that playing out, Gav?
I think it's going to. I'm going to go back to last week, where I was a little bit conservative in saying that they'll win by more than 15, because it turned out a lot more than that. But I'm actually going to say exactly what I did last week. If the bookies gave us a 15, if the bookies gave Argentina a 15-point lead, I would go with that, because I don't think it'll be as big as last week, but I think that it will be comprehensive and probably around 15 points. I just think that Argentina might go out. Remember, they're not in the championship anymore. So I've got a feeling that this might be one of those days where the opposition are sort of into a damage limitation a little bit. They don't want to lose by a big score. They obviously try and win. And let's not forget that Argentina have been very good in the past at turning around defeats. I mean, they were well beaten by New Zealand in Argentina earlier, just a few months ago. And then the following week, they bounced back and they played brilliantly. So Argentina are still dangerous. But, if you get to bet on the game, it definitely...
Sounds like you're tempering to me.
No, but I'm not. I mean, it's going to be at least 15 points. It's going to be at least 15 points. And and Kevin, if the referee isn't as like Angus Gardner was this week, and if the ball bounces for the Boks from the start, then we could have a 50-pointer quite easily. I mean, it's not. Yeah. So I'm saying no more than 50. I'm saying they're not going to lose by less. They're not going to win by less than 15, but they could win by 55.
Okay. Well, Gav, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. We got about 30 seconds left on the before we get you cut off and stuff like that. No, it's no worries. Always enjoy it. Let's try and get together on Thursday to do it when the teams are announced, and we can have one more catch up. But thanks a lot for phoning in on your holidays. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kev.
Thanks, Gav.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.